welcome back. So today I've decided to do a video on why Britain is a hot mess at the moment, because obviously this is a channel that's dedicated to British culture, and at the moment Britain is a little bit of a hot mess for a couple of reasons actually. And I'm going to kind of talk about how we've ended up here. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's really good about Britain and things that we should celebrate, and it's probably things that I think certain groups are not focusing on enough. Like really positive things about multiculturalism, for example, liberalness, freedom of speech and expression, and actually that we're a country that has always supported kind of development and progression. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. And you know what? It could end up going in one of two directions. It could end up being like this amazing, like inspirational video, or it could end up like a really big preachy moan. And I'm going to be really careful about what I say, because I know that there are groups and factions that are offensive. But like the whole point of this channel actually is to educate and inform and give a viewpoint on things without trying to offend, because freedom of speech is important, democracy is important, being able to stand in your truth is important. And whilst I'm not coming at any group of people here, I genuinely am not. I certainly think that some of us need to really see what's going on and have it explained to them so they can realize that actually we should be proud of multiculturalism. We should be proud of mixed heritage. We should be proud of the things that make Britain an amazing place to be, and why so many people actually want to be here because of the good things about this country. And then instead of sitting here bad-mouthing it, making people feel like they don't belong, making people feel that they can't express themselves, being very narrow in the particular ways that we view things. So I'm probably waffling here, but I think this is going to be a heavy video, and you might want to stay and watch it, or you might want to avoid it like the plague. I don't mind. It's completely up to you. But Britain in 2025, let's get into it. Britishness. And what exactly are British values? Because I feel like it's got a little bit confused, and I wanted to kind of clear up the ambiguity around this, because yeah, it's got a little, it's a bit of a mess out there, isn't it? In fact, I describe Britishness right now as a little bit of a hot mess, because I think there's a lot of agitation, I think there's a lot of anger, and I think there's a lot of fear. And that saddens me, because I don't want to live in a world of fear, anger, and sadness. I want to live in a world of freedom and choice and love and support and nurture, because that's a lot of a better world to live in than one that's filled with hostility and anger and resentment. And I think that's what the message of my video is going to be today, that real British values are about these qualities: inclusivity, democracy, liberalism, love, and support. Okay, so we are a country that's probably living on past glories. And I think because we're living on past glories, we feel very afraid of that, because we've lost our standing, haven't we, a little bit? We've shot ourselves in the foot. So I think like the last kind of proud moment in Britain was 2012, and I think it was the Olympic Games. We put on a glorious show, and I feel like that was the end of an era. We had, you know, shown that we were inclusive, we'd integrated so many different aspects of our society into putting on this big show for the Olympics, and we brought the best of British, and it really did feel glorious. And then since then, it hasn't felt glorious. And I think we need to really talk about what Brexit did. Brexit was not re-establishing this wonderful era of Britain and this great British identity, because this British identity hadn't really existed for a while. We are living in a different era. We are living in a global era, and looking at not like these old, centuries old views of Britain and trying to dredge them up and make them relevant, because they are not, because you are not looking at the country that you are living in, okay? You are looking at the past. And sometimes it's good to look at the past, and sometimes it's amazing. So, Beatles, Britpop, you've heard me talk about things from the past that make, the UK great. Shakespeare's amazing. But like, what is it today that makes our country good? Well, that's what I want to try and figure out, because I think we're missing a very big picture here. And this is what I want to talk about. And our identity feels fuzzy. It's not clearly defined. So, a really long time ago, our identity was linked to colonialism and colonizing lots of places and having this big, great British Empire. Now, this empire, to be fair, went and probably ruined a lot of other cultural identities and locations. There are parts of the world that look to that time and realize they were suppressed and that they were enforced a cultural identity that probably didn't belong to them, even a language that didn't belong to them. And that isn't, the same picture. That's not how everyone in the world views Britain. Some of the people have negative viewpoints that even our local neighbours, think Ireland, think Wales, have been on the wrong side of maybe English supremacy and have felt that their own cultural identity has been kind of bullied out of them by Englishness and nationalism and Britishness, which I think for some part encompasses Englishness. I mean, I have to be careful here. Feel free to argue, that's fine. So there's a bit of a fragmentation in regional pride, isn't there? Like, we've got Scotland, we've got Northern Ireland, we've got Wales, we've got England, we've got 4 kingdoms that are united. But they were united by monarchy. They weren't always united by religion. They weren't always united by language. And they weren't always united by identity. In fact, we should therefore be very clear that our Britishness comes from blending different cultural identities. That makes absolute sense, doesn't it? A Welsh person isn't an English person. A Scottish person isn't a Welsh person. A Northern Irish person isn't a Scottish person. They have their own cultures, they have their own identities. Even within the country of England itself, we have the north-south divide. We are not all singing from the same hymn sheet. Our variance and our diversity makes us very special. And this is actually in our blood, isn't it? We have been colonized ourselves. We've had the Romans here. We've had the Anglo-Saxons, so those Germanic tribes. We've had the Vikings. We've had the French. Our country is a very mixed bag. It's a mongrel state, and it has lots of different influences. And this is why our language is so rich and beautiful. This is why so many people like English as a lingua franca. But equally, it's also because it's a way of blending people together and finding commonalities and things that unite us, rather than working out, otherwise there would have been lots of civil wars and we would be constantly fighting, wouldn't we, as a country, if we hadn't learned to kind of respect each other's differences and learn to get along with each other. Things about Britain identity as well is that there is this generational split. And you know that I like to talk about the generations, but there is this kind of older ideology that I think is frightened by an emerging ideology. And I think a lot of young people, a lot of progressive, educated young people, see the world as global. They don't feel that they're going to have to stay working in the UK. They can go and work in Australia. They can go and work in Europe. They can go and, well, until we ruin that with Brexit. But there are things that we can do. Well, did we ruin it with Brexit? I don't know. I'm not here to argue that. That's a completely different video, and you can have your own opinions on that. But you know what? We've got this idea of how Britain used to be, and I think we're not embracing where Britain is now. And I think this is what we need to do. I think we need to hold up to a mirror and go, this is where we're at. We're actually not there anymore. We haven't been there for quite a few years. We need to be aware of this and see how this has changed. So it's a bit like we're in a long-term relationship with ourselves, and we don't really know if we're staying together or filing for divorce, really, because we're so divided right now, and we're so busy trying to shout at each other because we think we're right, and we shouldn't be. We should be trying to come together and find the common ground and the commonality, because there's a reason there's a United in the United Kingdom, and it's because we've been able to do that previous times before, and we need to keep working on that. So let's remember that as we get into this in a bit more detail. So, flying a flag at the moment, half the people will be united and celebrating and thinking it's glorious, and another group will be eye rolling and going, oh my God, why are you so like racist? It's become a bit like that. And the reason is because you're uncertain about your cultural identity. That's the premise of this. And then people are leaning into this. People are using this against you. So political parties are going to use this to manipulate you. And if you think you're not being manipulated, then, well, I'm sorry, you are. And I don't get this. Not everybody understands how media work. Not everybody understands how politics works. And not everybody understands how society works. So, in order to suppress people, you make them feel fear. And what are we fearful of? Are we fearful of a minority of illegal immigrants, which I'm not sure, I haven't actually got data, but I do have the figure of like 0.11% of people are illegal immigrants. Okay, fair enough. These people ought to be terrified, aren't they? Oh, we're scared. Ooh, okay, fine. But is that what you're really frightened of? Or are you frightened by the fact that things are becoming more expensive? Are you frightened because you're having messages about bad things that have happened, but targeting particular groups because the media are giving you a particular message? Are you frightened because you're not really aware that the top 50 wealthy families in Britain have more wealth than the rest of the country united, and that's part of the problem? We are living in an era where millionaires, and shall I say billionaires, are telling you how you should think and feel. And some of these people are telling you things that aren't true. And they're making you feel angry, and they're making you feel threatened, and they're making you feel upset. And the reality is, where is this threat coming from? Because if you've experienced something and it has been scary and frightening, then yeah, you stand in that. But if you are just listening to hearsay, rumors, gossip, story, misinformation, the spreading of misinformation, really, is that helpful? And there's a lot of things about being British. And I've said, like, what is this Britishness that we are clinging on to? Because I have seen a picture of a knight with a St. George's cross on the front. So St. George, a Palestinian or from the Middle East man who slayed a dragon, is our country's like emblem. And he wasn't even English, he wasn't even British, but we're holding on to that. Then, bulldogs. Okay, great. I love a bulldog. Is that because we're harking back to Churchill and that war that we won 80 years ago? Okay, so we're clinging on to the past here, a past that doesn't really exist. I mean, what exactly are you upholding? What is the values here? Because for me, and you can argue with me, but tolerance, respect, inclusivity, democracy, liberalism, the rights to be religious free, to have religious freedom, the rights to have democratic freedom. So that's what Britishness is about. Those are the British values, aren't they? That's what we stand for. So why are you not standing for those values? And, there's a lot of things to be proud of. We have a lot of things that we're really good at: music, culture, television, inventing things, being progressive and liberal, and being a country that doesn't descend into chaos. We haven't had a civil war here in a couple of 100 years. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? And we've always been able to keep the status quo, and we've been able to keep stability. And now we're charging to streets, waving banners and being angry. But what are you angry about? What exactly are you worried about? And why is it feeling like such a threat to you? And it feels like such a threat to you because you've lost your identity, you don't know your place, and you feeling threatened. Anyone who isn't feeling threatened, anyone who isn't feeling vulnerable, isn't going to be going around raging and charging down the streets, because they're secure in who they are, and they're secure in what they believe in, and they're secure in their values, and they don't need other people to believe them, because they know empirically that that's who they are and those are the values they have. If you're upset, it's because you don't feel secure in your own identity, and you don't feel secure in other aspects of being British. not because of outsiders, not because of people that live here from other parts of the world, not because of immigration. There's something inside of you that is frightened and worried because you're feeling like the world is moving faster than you are and you're clinging on to something that no longer exists. And I get it, you're frightened because it doesn't exist anymore and it hasn't existed for a really long time. And you don't like that. And it feels scary, but let it go. Just leave it. It doesn't matter anymore. It's gone. So this video is really hard because I'm trying to be generic here and I'm not trying to be specific because it's not about specific things. It's not about naming and shaming or blaming people. It's about a reflection on exactly how we've allowed ourselves to forget who we are and how we've forgotten our cultural identity. So this part of the video is going to be about bringing back a positive British cultural identity. Let's tap into 2012 again and remember all the fun, quirky, fabulous things that make us uniquely and distinctively British. So first of all, our self-deprecation and our humour. We have a dry sense of humour, and I tell you this now, I love growing up in the UK. They're cracking jokes. I've worked in the office, I've heard some banter. I've heard, I work in schools, the kids can be so funny, and it is that humour and that ability to be self-deprecating. We don't always take ourselves so seriously. Other countries do. America takes itself very seriously, and that suits America. I'm sure other parts of the world take themselves very seriously, but in Britain, we have a quirky sense of humour and we will laugh at ourselves and we will look at our ridiculousness. And I think that good-humoured, good-natured aspect of us is really important. It is a coping mechanism for when things are a bit grim. I'm sure we were cracking jokes during that World War that I've just talked about. I know that when things get a bit precarious, we've lived through some horrible things, haven't we? But we've always kept that British humour because humour is a really useful tool for helping us to stay positive. And it's also a brilliant cultural export, British comedy is brilliant and is definitely something to be, proud of. And then everyday multiculturalism. You will drink your tea from China. You will go to your Balti restaurant and you will eat curries from different parts of the world. You will speak in a language that has Greek and Indian words in it. You are living in a world in the UK that is shaped by multiculturalism. And that's because you can walk down our streets and see represented every ethnicity and every religion, and they live peacefully and they live happily in a safe country because that's what makes Britain safe. That's why it's a nice place to live. That's why people want to come here. It isn't because they are trying to overtake you and they want to take from you. They want to join you. They want to be part of this. They want to feel included because it's a safe place to be and it's a safe place to live. And we have beautiful language, we have accents, we have dialects, we have South Asian communities, we have Jewish communities, we have African communities, we have Chinese communities, we have Eastern European communities that live here, and every time they marry and have children here, those children become part of our British makeup and they make our country stronger and more united because we share our culture and those cultures can become part of our country. The reason that we are a strong country is because we integrate well and we merge with others and we are embracing of that, or embracing of that, and that is brilliant. So, we're like a cultural buffet here. You come to Britain and you get a little bit of everything. And let's face it, you want a little bit of everything on your plate, don't you? You don't want to be eating the more of the same. You want a varied diet, and you want that diet to be diverse. And that's what you get here. And you can, interesting stories and heritage and traditions are all passed down and they become part of the fabric, the quilt of Britishness. And I'm really proud of that. I love that when I turn on my TV, I will watch a lot of different people that are all representative of being Britishness. And I've been watching a lot of like K-dramas. I've got really into them and I think they're great, and J-dramas. And the thing that's really bothered me about K-dramas and J-dramas is a lack of diversity. And I am sometimes I want to see a different type of person in this TV program. Whilst I'm loving them and I think they're amazing, I want that diversity. I'm interested in other cultures and identities. I want to have different cultural experiences because I'm enriched by them. And I think a lot of people are, that's important, isn't it? And this ties into, like I've just said, that fabric of British storytelling, okay? Our identity is complex and varied. It's a web, it's being woven together. I said this massive blanket. We have our northern pride. We're not vilifying Manchester for being different from London. We're not vilifying Bristol from being different from Hull, because we actually accept and respect differences and we tolerate differences. And, we have this patchwork quilt identity. Scotland has brilliant quirks and histories and legends that we can all hear about and enjoy as part of our Britishness, but respect as part of Scotland's Scottishness. And this is essential, isn't it? It's a richness and it's beautiful, and we should be celebrating it. And, our institutions. I think part of the reason we're struggling is maybe because we had Queen Elizabeth on the throne for a really long time, like for over half a century. She was reigning, she was ruling. She got coronated in the 1950s and she lived until, the 2020s. That's a really long time. And that is a lot of stability. And now we have our new monarch. We've got Charles, and he's great. But equally, I don't think he's as uniting in his identity. And I think that, let's look forward. We've got William and Kate coming. We've got their children to look forward to. Whether you're a monarchist or not, it's still nice to have a monarchy and for them to bring some tourism to our country and for people to look at those cultural pillars and to identify with them on a global scale. In our lived experience, there's lots of things that make Britain such a beautiful place. The BBC, I mean, there's been in an orange, should we be paying for the BBC? But it's one of the oldest television channels in the world, if not the oldest. And it's got I've been really enjoying going onto YouTube and looking at the BBC archives about how we used to live in Britain and looking at, little excerpts of what the future would have looked like from Tomorrow's World in 1989. Or looking at, what the working class man was earning in the 1950s, or when the mills were shutting in parts of Manchester in the 1980s. And I think that's amazing because I am interested in these things. And I think it's little snapshots of bygone eras and the world is changing. And I do wonder, what will they say about Britain today? What will they talk about in the 2020s Britain? What will they have to say? So how could Britain get its identity back? This is what we're talking about, but celebrate hybridity. Don't you just love that word? Instead of trying to pick one authentic British identity, celebrate the varied and diverse British identity. Everybody's a mix. I am a little bit of a mix, believe it or not. My family moved over to here in Britain in the 1950s. And, we love it here. It's been embracing and accepting. We still have our cultural heritages that we like and we're proud of. But we also love being British and part of that. I love that in England, you can find 300 different languages being spoken. We'll all be queuing together, but we'll all be speaking a different language in that queue. But that's amazing. What's wrong with being bilingual? Is it bad to be bilingual? I don't think so. And anyone who wants to try and learn English and is trying their hardest, then well done them. That is pretty impressive. We have some really good food. In fact, loads of people hate our food, but do you want to tell what's made our food really interesting? Like I said, Balti. Balti is actually a British dish. It's obviously mixed homage of different Asian cuisines that got made and created in Birmingham. It's a Brummie dish. But, you don't get Baltis in the middle of Asia. You get them in the UK. They're a distinctive British cuisine that is linked to our varied cultural identity and from all our lovely British people that come from different heritages and different ethnicities. And that's absolutely amazing. And think about our music and our creativity there. And, we claim Dua Lipa, but do you know that Dua Lipa wasn't born in Britain? We claim Rita Ora, and she wasn't born in Britain, but we claim her. And we're really proud of the music and that they're flying the flag and that they've grown up safely in the UK, having fled from war and enjoying being part of this rich tapestry of Britishness. And humour and humanity first. Britain is actually a humanitarian country. The reason we have a national healthcare system and a welfare state is because we saw how bad it got. We saw what poverty did. And our health system is amazing. The fact that you can birth children and not pay £50,000 for it is wonderful. The fact that you can have surgery and not pay £30,000 for it is brilliant. And we can whinge and we can bitch and we can moan about this. But that's because we have welfare at the heart of what we care about. And sometimes maybe what we're feeling is a lack of community and forgetting to embrace and make those connections. We're so on screens, we're so digital now that we're forgetting our humanity first, to be friends. Like when the Ukraine went to war, how many British people opened up their homes to give people a place to stay? That makes me proud. That should make you proud. I am proud to work in an environment where I will offer people a place to stay. And this is a common thing of Britain opening its doors to enable people who are persecuted and frightened to come here. Do you know that Americans are choosing to move here at the moment because they are frightened by what's happening in America? Because they feel safe here. And are we kicking them out of the country? No, we're embracing them. And that's what we've done because that's who we are. That is Britishness. And that's a really important message for us to remember. Okay, so I'm kind of waffled on. I'm going to try and end on a more clear point. So there are 4 key British values. Democracy, being able to have a say, have a vote, and freedom in who you choose to vote. Rule of law, law applies equally, and you are proven, well, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. Individual liberty, you have the freedom of speech, beliefs, and lifestyles. You can be whatever you want to be as long as it is not going against the law, which obviously makes sense. Mutual respect and tolerance, particularly across religions, ethnicities, and lifestyles. These are British values. This is what people went to war for. This is what people fought against. You know what? They didn't like nationalism. Your forefathers, the allies, they stood for those 4 British values. So I'm just going to go over them again. Democracy, rule of law, individual liberty, respect, and tolerance. They didn't like Nazism. They didn't agree with that. They fought against that far right ideology. They fought so we didn't have flags that did not include people. They fought so people weren't dying in concentration camps. They fought so that you could be free to speak the language you want, to eat the food you want, to have the education that you want. So we're very clear on that. And that's why those 4 values are absolutely important. And that's why we need to remember that. So those are British values. And if you're confused about British identity, that's what British is. Then we have some cultural everyday values. So let's just talk about our cultural everyday values. Fair play and justice. We're about fairness. We're about equality. We're about equity. That's important. We want to feel a sense of justice and want to see a sense of fairness. And we see that maybe sometimes some of these protests are born out of wanting to feel this justice and this fairness. That's important. And we're going to hold on to that. Politeness and understatement. We are not big on massive altercations. We are not big on raging, shouting, lambasting. We are understated and we are polite in how we choose to exert our opinions and how we choose to talk and how we choose to communicate. Keep calm and carry on because that's Britishness. That's what we do. Humour and irony, because we can be very satirical. We can be politically mocking, but we also know that it's our right to be able to be politically mocking and not to be pulled down for it. That is important. That is freedom of speech. We don't all have to agree. We don't all have to have the same values, but we certainly all have to understand that everybody has a right to express themselves. And if we want to change someone's viewpoint, we educate them. We give them data. We'll crack a few jokes. We'll show them the irony of a situation because that's what we do because we're British. Resilience and muddling through. We are a resilient nation. We have fought in wars. We have gone through COVID. We have gone through financial hardship. There has been some really dark days in British history. Some terrible things have happened, but equally some amazing things have happened. And that's because we are British and we work together. And it's keep calm and carry on. And that's what we do. We stood in our gardens clapping our NHS. We couldn't be united. We couldn't be together, but we persevered and we were resilient through that. And we did as we were told because we respected the rule of law and we respected that we were keeping each other safe. And we were far more united during COVID than perhaps we are now. So we need to really think about what's happened in the last 5 years to change that. Community spirit. We are a community. Britain is about communities, village halls, closing streets for street parties, celebrating in the pub for a few pints when our football teams have success. We, coming into the city to watch buzzers with cups and final lists from football teams to celebrate. That's what we do. We like that. That is good. And everybody can be united under a team sport, can't they? Nobody's judging that then. Everybody's part of that. And that's what we do because that's what British people are about, okay? When we did clapping for carers, again, uniting under the service that people were providing for us. Wearing our poppies with pride because we remember that people self-sacrificed and it didn't matter what creed, colour or religion they were still going to support the fact that they had contributed to our cause and we would feel proud of them. There's nothing wrong with feeling pride as long as we feel the right type of pride towards the right type of circumstances. And love of tradition and quirks. We love tea. We love football. We love Sunday dinners. We love Strictly. We love queuing. We love these things. We love Fawlty Towers. Whatever it is that we love, we should be proud of that and we should celebrate that. Symbols that glue our cultural identity. Be it the Spice Girls, be it Gaza crying after the 1990 World Cup semi-finals. I don't know what unites you, but there is something that unites all of us, and that's our desire to uphold these views and these values. So it's been a muddled one maybe, but I hope there's something we can glean from this, and that is how to be a good British citizen, and that is respect, tolerance, freedom, and love and support. Those are the key British values that we need to be remembering. We have great food, we have great music, we have great culture, we have strength in a crisis, and these are brilliant things. So no, I don't think our British identity has gone, but I think our British identity needs to change, and I think we need to realise just exactly what our British identity is. It's bigger, it's better, it's inclusive. And if you don't think being British is about being inclusive, then you're in the wrong place because it really is. We are a mixing pot of lots of different things. Our language is a mixing pot of different things. Our food is a mixing pot of different things. Our individual kind of beliefs are a mixing pot of lots of different things. And that's what makes us unique, distinctive, and special. And every wave of immigration adds to that. And we should be proud of our safe space that is a good place for people to live and to celebrate who they are and be comfortable in who they are. And that's what I am proud of. So pass the naan bread and the gravy, because that's what you can have at the dinner table here in Britain, where everybody is welcome. So I'm just going to wind up here. I hope you've enjoyed this, a little deep dive, a little quirky mind bomb. I'd be interested to see what you think. I mean, do you have different views to me? Do you have different thoughts on this? Do you agree with some of the things that I've had to say today? As always, like, subscribe, comment, let me know your thoughts, and I look forward to hearing from you next time. Ta-ta for now. Bye.